This is Beyond Perception, where it's all about breaking out of limited perception and waking up to our creative genius, our potential, our true self. I am Simon Rilling, and I'm so excited to have Alessandro Ferullo as a guest today. His lifelong search for deeper meaning led him to explore and study different wisdom traditions, such as Buddhism and Taoism, and to discover Qi Gong 30 years ago. It completely transformed his life, and he has been practicing ever since. He's the founder of Flowing Health and a Qigong teacher for many years, driven by the vision to empower people to gain full control of their health and energy in mind and body. Welcome to the show, Alessandro. It's a true pleasure.
Thank you, Simon. Yeah, and I'm very honored to be here. I've read all the, your other speakers and their biographies and the titles, and I think it's all so, relevant to what's going on today and to the life we're all here to discover for ourselves. So I think I really, admire what you've done in such a short time, and I think it's a very valuable resource, especially with things like podcasts these days, because people can listen quite easily. I think in the old days, it wasn't so easy to reach people. So I really admire what you've done, and I'm very honored to be here and share what I know about these practices you mentioned. Yeah.
You're very kind. And just a couple of days ago, I had my second ever Qigong session with you and my wife, and it felt really, really relaxing and flow, beautiful. Very different to my first encounter circa 12 years ago in Mexico, which I'll refer to later. But before we talk about what Qigong is, I would like to know, how did Qigong find you?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I wasn't actually searching for it, but I did have a book, which I'm going to mention later, at home, called the Tao Te Ching, which is, have you heard of this, the Tao Te Ching?
I've heard.
Yeah, it's a book by Lao Tzu, written about 25 years ago. It's 81 chapters, very short, but actually the second most translated book after the Bible in the world. So even though most people never heard of it, it's very, kind of translated and quoted. And I used to read this before I started Qigong. I don't know why. I bought it and I used to read it at night and feel quite relaxed and then go to sleep, but I had no idea what it was talking about. and then when I started practicing Qigong and I reread it, I started really understanding. And later I'm going to, read one of the short chapters, because it's like a guide to life. And if we could lead our lives possibly based on just one chapter of that book, we could all be very happy. So it's very deep, simple knowledge about how, as humans, we can live in harmony with nature and the universe around us. But so I had that book. Then I found myself in a church hall in North London with this Chinese man, Zhijing Wang, and there were just 6 of us. And I remember sensing something between my hands. It was like a tingling, or I couldn't put my hands together. And it's what the Chinese call the qi, which we can describe a bit more later on. Mm-hmm. But I could feel something there. And then I just had this kind of aha moment where I thought, I've been looking for this for all my life. I had a job, I had a car, I had a home, I had family, but there was something missing. And I'm not saying it was necessarily Qigong, but Qigong awakened me to a deeper connection to myself, to other people, to the universe, a whole healing form, and an understanding of, what are we here for, and why. And I think I love this Chinese term. It's Zheng Ren, which means like a true human being. So Qigong is to help you become yourself, become a true human being, not become someone weird who does weird actions or movements. Become yourself. But often we're covered kind of in layers, as we know, of teachings from school, our parents, society. So in a way, Qigong is a very interesting, almost unlearning process of taking off these layers. And when you get underneath them, you realize we're all energy beings. Even Albert Einstein says, there is only energy. That's all there is to the universe. We are energy. The universe is energy. Qigong is a way to connect our energy with this universal energy, which is all one. But as humans, often we're a bit disconnected. So I think I felt a connection of some kind, a deep connection, and I wanted to study it and go into it. And through the years, and doing many different retreats with my teacher on different aspects of Qigong, because there's many different types and aspects. I think I've learned, from the sitting meditation to martial arts to standing to 5 animals. There's so much to be said, but ultimately it's to actually help us realize our potential and our connection to everything around us. So sorry, that's a bit of a long answer, but
yeah, well, a couple of questions. So when you had that first Qigong session or training, was it by accident, or have you been like specially looking for something like that? Or like you mentioned, you read during or before you read that book, but
yeah.
So you have been already looking for
actually not
meaning,
really,
or
not really. I think
no?
I think I was searching for something. It's hard to describe the word. A kind of belonging in some way. It felt like with my family, with society, not that I didn't belong, but it felt like a kind of coming home to myself. So something familiar. It was like I was beginning to recognize, this is an energy, and actually I have this energy in me, and there's other people in this room. Like there was a woman, I'll never forget this. She was in a chair. She was had pain and was quite ill and very angry with my teacher, saying, help me, sort me out with the energy, and the way he dealt with her was very kind of inspiring, in that he didn't get involved. He normally, if you're doing a healing weekend, you kind of go to the person, you do this, but he sometimes things are awakened, like anger, often emotions come up like that. And the emotions can dissolve as well in the practice. So it's the way he dealt with this angry woman. And then there was a guy there, obviously I'll never forget this either, who had no arms. You don't often see people in a Qigong session with no arms. And we were moving spontaneously with the energy, but he had these kind of fake arms, and they were just flopping left to right around him. And it was quite a picture. It was like this angry woman, a man with no arms, and 4 other people. And it was like I don't know, going into another world, a new world. And I just thought, let me look into this another time, and another time, and another time. And then over the years, I think I realized why I'd been attracted, but I was definitely not looking for it. I didn't know how it was spelt. I'd never heard of it. I'd heard of Tai Chi. I'd never heard of Qigong. So it was trust, just going to this church hall, North London, on a weekend, over 30 years ago, as you said.
Yeah, one of the things I'm curious, because like, my first encounter with Qigong, it was in Mexico with my wife then. And I remember being there, and it was a mix of Kundalini yoga and Qigong. And I was thinking, this is crazy. Like, this looks like a cult, like people like doing their moves and seemingly a bit in a trance or so. And I didn't feel anything. I was like just having a bit of physical suffering and thinking, this is stupid. So there was absolutely no like nice emotional, like physical, like sensation or nothing. So what would you say to someone like me, or like someone else who maybe gives it a try, or like is curious, but there's just no sensation or so?
It's a good question. I think I'd say most people who come to this particular style of Qigong is called Hua Gong, which means kind of transformation or dissolving. So you transform the emotions, you transform the problem, you dissolve the pain. So it's a very self-healing method. And I remember when my teacher started teaching, and another teacher did in London at the same time, like in the first hour of practice, you could sense the chi. You could in the first hour. And I know if I'm teaching, generally people in the first hour or session can always feel the chi. But when they started teaching over 30 years ago, they had death threats from America saying, you can't share this practice. It's so precious. It's worth a lot of money. You can't just let people feel the chi so easily. And if you go to China, I've been to China, Qigong masters will say, if you pay me, $5,000, $10,000 in 6 months, you can feel the chi, So it's a precious commodity, So I'm not surprised either that people don't give it freely and that people don't get it freely, but actually it's a universal energy available to everyone. And if I'm open to it, to share it, people get it, without me forcing it or having an agenda. So I'd say if you don't, either you need to look at the teacher or the style, because even when you mentioned yoga and Qigong, if things are mixed a bit, it's a bit tricky. It has to be a pure kind of, channel. If you think of a radio station, if you've got a lot of interference, the half yoga channel, half Qigong channel, and what kind of Qigong, a bit of martial arts, bit of this, bit of that, it's a bit messy, So with our Qigong, the Huagong, it's definitely a very clear channel, not mixed with anything else. And I know other people who mix things up, and it's not so effective because some people get one thing, some people get another, some people get a negative thing, some people positive. But I'd say if you don't feel it in the first session, you definitely will within, an hour or two, 100%.
That's interesting. So you would even say that it's not necessarily just me, but it's also depending on the teacher. Like it's not depending on my openness to feeling the chi, but it's also dependent on the teacher. And then, I mean, maybe let's first talk a little bit. What's chi actually?
What is it?
What is it, or what's the practice about?
So chi, there are many descriptions of the word, but really it's the vital natural force that gives us life, that helps nature thrive, that basically brought the universe into being, and that where we came from, where we'll go. There's about 50 different descriptions of the word chi. So it could be breath, it could be light, it could be the steam coming off the rice when you cook it, it could be the shape of a round table as opposed to a pointed table where the chi is not very good. So it has many words, but to make it simple, we are composed of energy and solid matter. If the chi in the body is blocked, generally we might feel a pain somewhere. So an acupuncturist would describe it as the chi is blocked in the shoulder. They put some needles in, they unblock it, the chi flows, the pain goes. Same with Qigong. It's like the shoulder, some block somewhere. When we do the practice, we're helping the flow of energy. But we are connected to this energy, universal energy, which is also called chi. It's all one energy, but as humans, we tend to have been either disconnected or we disconnect ourselves. We think that, if we eat and breathe and drink, this keeps us alive, gives us energy. Many people think that's enough, but actually, if you kept doing that, you couldn't survive. You couldn't live forever. What is it that keeps us alive? It's not food, air, and water. They help, but it's this vital energy or chi. When the chi is cut off, we're gone from this earth. So it's very interesting. It's like a vital force behind everything. And it's very hard to pinpoint it where it is, but it's something that's always flowing, always available to us. And Qigong is a way of connecting the human with the universal. And just to talk about the universal a bit, Qigong is not a religion nor a you mentioned a sect, nor a sect. nor against, any other system. Everything has an energy. You do Pilates, has a certain energy in the practice. You do yoga, but I like some of the descriptions I hear about the universal energy. What is it? So if people like to call it God, that's fine. Nothing, Qigong has nothing against. God is all encompassing. I hear some people call it the field of all possibilities. Some people call it the unknown. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about the unknown, dipping into the unknown, then you get the healing. All that is, capital A, everything that's there. Natural law, the Buddhists talk about. So whatever we call it, but simple word is Qi, energy. I'm energy, there's a universal energy. When I connect with it, I know that it has benefits for me. When I help other people connect, it has benefits for them. Often if I'm teaching, people get much more benefit than I do. So it's not me doing it even. I'm only connecting, helping. They're getting the healing, the energy. So I've seen people sometimes come for 10 years. They can sense the energy a bit here and there. Somebody comes once, they feel the energy all through the body. They feel heat, their anger's gone. It's like, wow, in one session. So actually, the one factor is that we can practice, we can connect. Another factor is our own, what's the word? We can call it our own karma, our own, how our belief system is, what we've done in this life, good, bad, ugly, what we've done in past lives. So in a way, some people much more easily can get healing than others. I mean, just to give you an example, I had one lady, a good friend of mine, Margaret, and her friend came to Qigong about 30 years ago. They both had breast cancer and were given 6 months to live. And Margaret practiced every day and she lived 28 years, and the other lady didn't practice and died within 6 months. I'm not saying that this is a general rule, but it's like, why did she choose to practice? Why did the other lady not, knowing that it might help? And so it's like, what is it in us that enables us to stay open and to receive? And I think that's a general lesson in life. Some people are more open to others. And I love what Wayne Dyer, do you know Wayne Dyer?
Yes,
You heard of him?
Yes,
Yeah,
I heard of
he
him.
said a beautiful thing about the ego. We all have ego, which helps us to protect us, keep us safe most of the time, but sometimes it's a bit troublesome. And he says ego stands for edging God out.
Yeah.
So if I think, I'm going to eat, I'm going to drink, I'm going to take all these vitamins, go to the gym every day, I'm so amazing, I'm so healthy, I'm so vibrant, I'm so successful, I'm not giving, gratitude or, connection to something beyond, call it God, call it the universal energy. In the end, it turns out badly. And I'm sure people, I've known people on the outside, very healthy physically, everything looks really good, and they died in their 30s or 40s of some immediate heart attack or tumor. It's like, but they were so healthy on the surface. Qi is like internal energy, balanced. So when this is balanced internally and connected to this universal signal, if you like, actually that's one of my favorite terms, universal signal. It's like something emanating energy, and we need to just tune into this signal. So yeah, I can't remember the question, but I got a bit carried away.
No, it's super interesting. So like literally, like Qigong is the practice of reconnecting to the Qi and having it circulate in your body.
Yeah, it is as simple as that. Now, it's as simple as that, but when we connect with it, then the key is to stay in tune with it, because we can connect with it and then what? But when we stay in tune, then the energy starts flowing. The energy goes to where is needed. Sometimes we're not even aware we have some problem, for example, in the liver. Liver is generally, related to anger, depression, emotion. So we might be someone quite depressed, just for example, or angry person. They do Qigong.
I was tested
Kinesiology.
Yes, that my liver is weak just last week. Yeah.
Okay, so just for example, if we did a Qigong session which
Mhm.
focused on, let's say that it's called, the wood element is liver. Liver is wood. So springtime is when people with, imbalance in the liver often get quite, either get ill, detox, feel a bit out of sorts. But if you did a good Qigong practice, practicing on the wood element, without even knowing that you're practicing for the liver, it would help your liver and strengthen it. You might find the emotion is transformed, settled, but you haven't focused on the problem. So the qi goes to wherever is needed. It has an intelligence. And this has happened in many cases, and people can read about it on the internet, like with cancer, where people's cancer disappears without them focusing on the cancer. They're doing the practice, and something disappears. Like the energy goes to that area, wherever it is, and clears something, and it's gone. But I don't want to make claims. I'm very careful not to make claims, but there are Qigong hospitals. People can read about it. And I think many people come to Qigong with very serious illness. Often I've seen people come, near death, multiple sclerosis, ME, all kinds of issues when nothing else can help them. And then something happens in Qigong where they're receiving this nourishment from this universal energy was always there. And then they often become healthier than they were before the illness. It's amazing when you see it.
When we had a chat a couple of days ago, you mentioned it. I think it was my wife mentioned it, that she found that there are Qigong hospitals in China for terminally ill patients, and you mentioned that partially they don't eat anything, but they kind of like harvest, or they receive the qi as their energy to sustain their life. And I mean, it sounds almost too fantastic for like growing up here in the Western world, and also like not really being exposed to this narrative or this perspective on life. And
I mean, just to shed a bit of light on that, I think the way to explain it is because I did attend a workshop with a Qigong master who specializes in removing tumors. He loves tumors. It's just his skill. Some Qigong masters are very good with, mobility problems, some with martial arts. He's a tumor specialist. And in China, he has millions of people in the parks listening to his tapes or CDs where they listen and it helps their immune system, etc. But so I saw him actually remove tumors like in front of me. But what was really interesting was he said to the woman, for example, who had the tumor, he said, do you remember when this started? Because every problem has a root to the problem. If he doesn't go to the root, he can't help the person generally. And most people don't go to the root of the problem. So in the West, just for example, I'm not saying tumors are always come from some trauma, but a lot of the time they tend to come from some, the body under stress. They tend to. So if we can reconnect with that stress and make a decision to get better. So he said to this woman, have you decided whether, can you reconnect with when this happened? It was like 12 years before something traumatic happened. So he reminded her, and was she ready to let go of this? And she said, yes. Now, many people are not ready to let go. They haven't really thought about when it started. And in the West, what we tend to do is cut it out, the tumor, but the trauma is still there because it happened some time ago and we're not even connected to it, but we've cut a piece of the body out. So it's it's just a different approach. So he said, always, let's look at the root, let's go to the root, and now I can help you. So with his energy, he gradually, actually, I know that even the Chinese words, I wrote them down, but he instructed the tumor to leave. He told it to go. He instructed it over and over. And gradually the tumor got smaller, smaller, smaller. It was gone in about 15 minutes. But what was interesting, he said to her, you've got to do this practice every day, like a cleansing practice, purifying, because what happens is, as we know with illness, often it can return. And he said, sometimes people because they don't believe it happened, that it's gone, they keep searching for it. You know, they say, what, you know, I had how could it have gone? How could it have gone? It comes back. You know, it's almost like a memory that we have. And this is one of the other problems with healing often, no matter how amazing the healer, you know, if we are attached to the problem, and I think a lot of illness serves people sadly quite well. So they're not going to let go of it, no matter what people do. And I'm sure we know people like that.
Mhm.
It serves them, whether to get attention or, you know, whatever. But what I'm trying to say is we all have a choice. So having seen it, you know, I know that it's possible.
Well, like, if I may ask, what kind of tumor was that? It was visible, and then it was
she
getting
had
visibly smaller.
It was a breast tumor, which was maybe 4 centimeters across.
Mm-hmm.
So as he did the treatment, then he said, "Can you feel it now?" And it was a bit smaller. "Can you feel it now?" A bit smaller. "Can you feel it now?" No, can't feel it. So, you know, and I've seen him. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Or how to pronounce it, but he's on YouTube, and I've seen him in an audience of women full of, you know, all with, you know, some problem, many of them with tumors. So he's treating a woman on stage to remove her tumor. The doctor is there with her, and he's measured the tumor. He says, "This is the size of the tumor," her own doctor. He measures it, he does the treatment, measure, treatment, doctor certifies that it's gone. And then he says in the audience to the women, mainly women, he says, "Has anyone else's tumor gone?" And all these women going, "Yeah, me." So it's a chi, we call it a chi field is created, an energy field, and that's a healing field. And these women weren't putting attention on it, but he was treating one woman and the others were being treated. So it's quite, in the West, as you said rightly, it's hard to get our head around it. But when you've seen it, and I've seen it many times over, it's quite, but we also have to be open to it, and we have to, I'm not saying necessarily even believe, but we have to be open to wanting to let go of something. Because I've seen him with women also, he couldn't help them at all. You know, he was trying to remove it, he was sweating, he was really, and he said to the woman, relax, and he just couldn't do it. You know, they were just holding on so tightly to their issue, whatever it was. So, you know, that's another thing. We're not, you know, we're not God. We can't do everything. And, you know, if you can help people, you can, sometimes you can't, but a lot of this is up to the individual, you know, how we connect, how open we are. And I think that's a general lesson in life as well.
That's super interesting. And would you say that this master is a vessel for the chi and then healing the others, or is it like kind of he enables the person like who gets the healing to self-heal, or like how would you describe it?
No,
or is it not possible to say or explain it that way?
No, I think it is possible to say. I think he facilitates it. I mean, without him, they couldn't really do it, because he's doing it in a short time, quite quickly, and that's his skill. But I remember him describing this as very interesting, very interesting. He said, in life, you know, we are given a certain body. And if you compare it, say, to a car, you know, one person is a Ferrari, one person is a Fiat, one person is a tractor. But what we do in life is the Ferrari tries to go over the field, and the tractor on the motorway. You know, we live unnaturally, you know, and this causes problems. You know, we all have the capacity to heal, but also to get ill. So if we, for example, smoke, chances are we're not helping the cancer to stay away. We're kind of asking for trouble in a way. You know, I'm not saying always, but a lot of the time we are. So how we live our lives is often not in a natural way according to who we are, firstly. Then he said what he's doing is unnatural because he's removing tumors and this and that. But actually, when we get even things like cancer in the old days, that was a very natural way to die. Nowadays, we want to give it a name, get rid of it, give people drugs to stay alive. You know, he said, what I'm doing is unnatural because when the body breaks down, it's a natural way of leaving, you know, the planet, really. So even though it's unnatural what he's doing it anyway, you know, to help people. But he also said something very interesting. He said, often, say a person has cancer and they don't know they've got it. Yeah, they might live another 1 or 2 years with it and then die naturally. Once you start messing about with it, like cutting it out, like in the West we do, most people live shorter lives. So in the West, by getting involved with the cancer and those things, a lot of the time, we're shortening people's lives. I'm not saying you should just say, oh, just keep going, but we know people. I remember Yul Brynner had cancer. They said, stop acting, don't do this, don't do that. He said, no, he continued acting. He lived like 12 years, that was his choice. He just said, I'm not giving in to this thing that you're telling me to do or not do. So anyway, it's a whole topic that's kind of,
And
I don't want to just talk about that.
And so would you say that, like you mentioned before, we don't, like something along the lines of we don't live normal anymore? Like if we were to live normal according to the requirements of our body, would we not need to practice Qigong? Is Qigong like a method to compensate for like the lifestyle we maybe nowadays have? Or
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say yes, if we did live in tune with nature, with the life around us, we wouldn't need to. But we're so out of tune, as we know. I mean, even simple things like food. You go to the supermarket, at least in England, half the food doesn't come from this country. It's from Peru, South Africa. And it's like, hang on, that's unnatural already. What we're eating is unnatural. What we're drinking is unnatural. The air that's so polluted in the cities is unnatural. So we're already, in an unnatural way of living. Now, if you clean all that up, we're still unnatural in that, we're always distracted by, computers, social media, this and that. So a natural way would be to take time to be still, do meditation. Those are not odd things. Those people did thousands of years ago. Those people did in the Christian tradition, which has been forgotten a bit. Those things people do as part of daily life, but they've been forgotten. So what is a natural life these days? And Qigong is, I'd say, it's a study of animals, nature, humans, cosmology, and how do we live within this environment in the best way. And so sometimes they're just simple lessons like learning to breathe properly, which we'll do a little meditation later, or tune into the food you eat. Energetically, food is energy. So sometimes if you're quite attuned to the food, a dead piece of meat that's kind of, sometimes even the meat, they hang it for weeks, don't they? So that dead piece of meat hanging for weeks, the energy in that meat is completely different to the energy in a steamed broccoli that was picked this morning. But even though the meat's expensive and it comes from here and there, Argentina, so what? It's dead. It's dead energetically. So even the food that we tend to eat and value, energetically, we're not really in tune with that food even.
That's super interesting. And about this illness, that's so interesting because of my family background. There's a lot of cancer. My father also died from cancer, and I came to the realization that there like a lot of possibly like not processed or released emotional trauma might contribute to disease. And now, when you told the story about this master like healing others, and you also mentioned that it's really key to understand the origin of, in that case, the cancer, to be able to let it go. What do you feel like how can you become aware of what's underlying a disease possibly? Because I mean, from own experience, it's not necessarily so straightforward to.
No,
really...
I think two things to say. I think one is, you hear this quite a lot when people have had things in their family. I've got a friend who says, "Oh, my uncle died of a weak heart. My father did. My grandfather. So, I've got it as well, you know. So in a way, by making statements like that, we're already kind of putting some message into our cells and the mind. And I think we are never, you know, they say these things are inherited. They can be, but actually what's more inherited is that we believe it. You know, that's the more dangerous thing, that we even ask for it. I remember my mother saying, oh, when I'm 60, I'll get arthritis in my neck. I said, why? She said, because everyone in Sardinia does. And I thought, that's not a good reason. That's not a good reason to ask for arthritis in your neck, you know. so it's like that belief system. So that's one thing. But the other thing is that if we practice and we are in tune with our bodies, doesn't have to be Qigong, but you know, we need to be present to the body, the energy system. We would pick up things like, you know, heart attack, stroke, cancer, way before we would normally pick it up. In the casual state, we're not really very aware of the body and the workings. When you start practicing something like Qigong, which is refining your energy system, you'll definitely get a sense of any area that maybe has some weakness. You'll notice it, and then you can strengthen that area. So if it's, you mentioned the heart, or no, you mentioned cancer. You know, cancer is kind of the whole immune system, you know, the whole body. So if you keep the immune system strong, will protect the body from kind of illness. And this, on a cellular level, the body becomes stronger, and we don't have to have what happened in the family. I think that's a really dangerous thing in the West, that people often just repeat, oh, we have cancer in the family, or we have, you know, heart problems in the family, or we have depression. Me too, yeah, you know, okay, you know, do you want it? No, not really. So I'm not saying just ignore it, actively do something about it, and keep your energy kind of clear and in tune with your body and your mind.
And would you say that like no matter whom or where you start, like with whatever awareness of energy or not, or sensitivity or not, you will have a benefit from it, and you also train your sensitivity at the same time? That like the more you practice, the more you will actually feel like or have sensations.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I remember also one of the, like in our session you did for us, which was really nice. You had this part where there was this imaginary energy ball, and it was kind of like imagining to put your arms above it and kind of have them like hang down instead of holding them up. And and yeah, on my side there was still some effort involved. It was not completely hanging down, but like for you, like practice, is it literally just having your arms like hang down and you could be there for hours? Or
well, I've got a friend, this is really interesting, I've got a friend, I don't like labels, you know, but sometimes people give illnesses labels. She's got a illness, she calls it ME. Do you know ME? It's like a exhaustion. You can't work, you can't get up, you can't.
Okay.
It's a long word, like myoencephalitis something. It's,
no, I don't know.
And anyway, it's very, very common when people burn out and they do too much, then the body suddenly says, right, that's enough. And they find it hard to get out of bed. They find it hard. And she's got, you know, this, you know, illness. But when she does this with the arms, she can do it for like 2 hours with her arms up. And she's completely ill and exhausted. But what happens is the first 10 minutes maybe are the most difficult, because we have the tension. But once we get it, you know, once we connect and dip into this energy, it actually comes through the body, and you start noticing it becomes easier. So I would say everybody does get it. Everybody can benefit. But like my teacher often says, you know, he says to people, are you interested in Qigong? And they say, not really, no. He said, are you interested in your health? And they go, yes, I am, you know. So it's like, give it a different name, they might come, you know. Give it a call it something else. Sometimes they think it's weird, so they're not going to do it, you know.
Yeah. And what have you personally, you mentioned like 30 years you're practicing Qigong. Like how did it change your life? And what can you, like, for someone who has never practiced it, like what are the benefits in terms of life experience?
That's a good one. I think that the more I do it, the harder it is to describe what. There are so many benefits. I think the main basic benefits is feeling, I can let go of stress quite easily and quite quickly. Feeling I can settle the emotions or transform them quite easily and quickly. Feeling protected and supported by this universal energy. Knowing, the knowledge that it's always there, even though we all know it. It's like, but it's not that easy to connect all the time or stay connected. So kind of knowing that, I think somebody mentioned earlier today, that there's a divine order to everything. We don't need to worry. We're all taken care of. We're all taken care of. But we often think we're not. We think we're isolated. So it's knowing, having that knowledge that I'm taken care of. And when I practice well and I teach other people, that I can help other people with health and healing. That's a great thing for me, and that's part of the practice. If you're a good practitioner, you have to share it. You have to, help other people. That's part of the practice. But I think maybe on a deeper level, it's also a spiritual practice. So it's probably to do with having a deeper understanding about life and also about death, that actually, we're just in this kind of cycle. We came from somewhere, we'll go back to that place. But people tend to look at it as linear. This is where we are. We're going to end. Everything's going to end here. What's going to happen? Big panic. Actually, not much is going to happen. We go back to where we came from. Then the cycle continues in some way. So Buddhists have their version, the Bardo state. People can read about it. It's fascinating stuff. Other people who have had near-death experiences have their version. So there are many versions of what happens. But one thing for sure, the people who have had near-death and Bardo and these Buddhists who have come back again into this life, it's amazing. Wherever we're going is amazing, but there's a lot of fear around it. So there's a kind of understanding of letting go of this fear. And even with this COVID situation, I think it's been so helpful in just not giving in to the fear and the worry and the conspiracy and this and that, and that the world is ruled by a few bankers, and that we're all finished, and there's so much going on. It's kind of taking it in and hearing it, and then just allowing it to go, and keeping it simple. Keeping that connection keeps everything very simple. It's yin yang. Earth is yin, heaven is yang. Human is between heaven and earth. We do the practice, we rebalance, we're okay, we're taken care of. Our immune system is stronger, our emotions are more settled, our mind is clearer, we feel physically stronger. I mean, I was 60, how old was I yesterday? 63 yesterday. And
was your birthday yesterday?
Yesterday, yeah.
Ah, happy birthday!
Thank you.
Amazing year.
But look, unshaved today because I didn't think I'd be on live. But I've had a few people say, really, are you that? I thought you were a lot younger and this and that. Anyway, it's fine. But I'm 63. I feel probably 10 years younger, maybe 15 years. But I know one thing: when I don't practice, I do feel quite old. So I can see the difference. I can really notice the difference. And as we get older, we need to keep up the practice. And the other thing is we have a store of energy. Let's call it the vitality in the body. As we get older, it gets a bit depleted. Qigong is one of the few things, I believe, that can nourish the internal energy system. So you can actually keep your energy not just contained, but you can nourish it. So actually, as you get older, you can stay healthy. So often they call it like a rejuvenating, effect. And they call it, postnatal, like the minute we're born, we start accumulating problems, and prenatal is going back to the womb. So in a way, the practice is going back to the prenatal state. Like if you practice really well, you can clear every problem. You can stay young, you can live to, there are Qigong masters hundreds of years old, they say, and all kinds of amazing things that they've proven, that the
Still alive, or is this like
yes and no. Look, it's hard to prove, Guinness Book of Records, people aren't very old in that, visit them, but definitely you hear about, who are really, very, very old, So look, I'd say health on a physical level, emotional level, mind level, especially at the moment, mental health. So keeping the mind settled, not overwhelmed by things, seeing the big picture, letting go of fear of life and death, and kind of just being present and realizing, this is where the power is in the present moment. So when I am challenged by, and I am, for my daughter's 22, she thinks I'm crap and useless and all this. It's okay. It's okay. But in the old days, or if I'm a bit out of balance, I feel a bit sort of, I get angry, or, I want her to respect me. It's okay. Like actually everything is, I understand everything. And I think I had one moment in my life after a Qigong retreat where I was driving back to London, and do you know Battersea Power Station? It's on the cover of one of the Pink Floyd albums. It's those 4 big chimneys. Have you seen that?
I might have. I'm sorry, I don't.
There's an album called many years ago, and it had Battersea. It's 4 massive chimneys. If you ever fly over London, you can't miss it.
Okay.
They're now converting it to apartments. But I remember driving down from Yorkshire, which is very beautiful. And I arrived in the middle of London, opposite these 4 big chimneys, and I got out the car. And I just looked around, and I realized at that moment that I understood everything, and everything was perfect as it was. It was a moment of, kind of clarity. And I thought, wow, everything is perfect as it is. Of course, later I lost that feeling quite quickly when I got home. But it's a bit like when you hear about, with Tibetan gurus, and I have 1 or 2 who I follow myself. When they talk about enlightenment, it's no big deal. It's just, you're still here, same body, same place, same city, but you just have a different outlook. You understand things, and it's not a big deal. People think it's some big deal. It's not. You just get it. You get the whole picture. So sometimes having a glimpse of that with Qigong, and I think, that's. I don't want to say too much about other aspects, because there's some kind of aspects that are kind of more spiritual. But I think it's better to keep to at the moment, the physical and the benefits in this life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a saying, chop wood and get water, and then enlightenment, and after enlightenment, chop wood and get water. And, I mean, I'm curious anyway, like what's enlightenment, and also what do you think like it's the purpose of life? If you're touching on the questions of death and life, and also I know that you've been studying Buddhism and Taoism also. How did that change your worldview, and also possibly your perspective on who you are?
I think it's really hard to know, exactly what the purpose is. I mean, I love the Dalai Lama, and he's great at breaking down the fact that his religion is kindness. It's not Buddhism. What about just being kind to ourselves and to other people? And what about just being happy? When we're happy, we can bring happiness to others. What about just being, accepting of what is? What about just being fulfilled in ourselves, and then bringing fulfillment to others? I don't believe that it's something amazing. And I think we all know people very wealthy, but, often that can bring a lot of issues, And I remember the Dalai Lama saying he knows loads of very rich people, but none of them have peace of mind, and they can't buy it either. So it's like having a peace of mind. And I think owing it to myself to be, happy and the best version of what I can be, but not just for myself, but for other people. So empowering myself and others to kind of realize their potential, if I can put it in a short sentence, something like that, and it doesn't have to be even with Qigong. Sometimes it could be just listening to them and going for a walk, yeah. So, and what was the other question?
I mean, a bit of how did studying or learning about Buddhism change your worldview? And
but I love,
if it did,
I just love Buddhism. And even though I was brought up Catholic or Christian, I think the interesting thing about Buddhism, you don't even have to be a Buddhist to live like a Buddhist, but Buddhism is really taking responsibility for our actions, cause and effect. And, which doesn't mean that we are, we give in to our fate. Some people say, oh, it's fate, this happened, this. No, we can actually, we can influence on a daily basis, on a moment by moment basis, our future in the present. And in Buddhism, a lot of what they teach is, doing good actions, not killing, not doing this, not doing that. If people lived by 3 or 4 Buddhist principles, we wouldn't have any wars. I mean, it's just, it's so simple and so simple to integrate into daily life. But what I like about my teacher's Qigong, and also I hope the Qigong I teach, it brings in elements of Buddhism, which is, to raise your own vibration and energy. And when you do, you can help other people more. Sometimes people want to help others, and in themselves, they're a bit sort of depleted or mixed up. So it's like a good practice brings in other principles of how to live as a good human, not just to be healthy and vibrant, but actually have a kind, open heart, and also bring in elements of Taoism, which is seeing the universe as this incredible mystery that we can just dip into, and we can use it for our own good and potential, and to inspire other people. Taoism has a very big picture. Actually, if I could, chapter 1 of the Tao Te Ching, maybe I can just read this. It's only a few lines.
Yes, please, yeah.
But what I love about it is the way it describes. Chapter 1 is about the Tao. What is the Tao actually? What is it? And it's a bit like God. If you say the word God to one person, it's a man with a beard. To another person, it's a woman. To another, it's Mother Nature. To another, it's beyond everything. And once you say the word, you can't describe it. And that's what I love about the Taoist thing. That it's so mysterious. And I feel like when we are open to that and aware of it, life is much more magical. I think life has become very scientific these days, and people just think they know it all. The scientists know everything, they've worked it out, but they can't even work out the Big Bang. They need that big thing where you are in Switzerland to see what happened. But even when they see what happened, doesn't mean it did happen. That's just a theory. It's such a waste, sorry to say, but it's like, what's the point? We're driving around in these metal cars with petrol, and we're trying to work out, anyway, that's another issue. Look, because science can never prove. Actually, what's really interesting, a lot of science is beginning to prove what Buddhism said 2,000 years ago. So now the science and Buddhism, how the mind, you can wire up the mind.
Can you give an example?
Yeah. So there's a priest, Mathieu Ricard, he's called. He's a French. Do you know him? Yeah, Buddhist.
Yes. Yeah.
And they call him the happiest monk in the world. So he wires up his brain with all these sensors, and he says, right now I'm going to activate the happy part of my brain. And then it goes to the computer, ding, the happy part. Now the sad. And he shows how we can influence the brain in a moment. So we have a choice at every moment to be happy, to be sad, to be depressed. But most people don't have a choice. They're just unconsciously that way. So Buddhism gives you a kind of hold over the mind that is quite amazing. And Qigong is very similar in that way, but Buddhism has a lot of very useful techniques for, emptying the mind, breathing. Later we'll do this mini meditation, which is kind of part Qigong, partly kind of Buddhist ideas. But it just gives a kind of guidelines, which I think in this life doesn't mean you have to become it, but you can integrate at the moment. And I think during lockdown, all these things, a lot of these principles where, you live a kind of healthy, and to do with environment, if you lived according to certain simple principles, this world would have no wars, we'd all be working together. But it's the human nature of, whatever, ego, wanting things a certain way, that leads us into these issues. Anyway, the Tao literally translated is kind of the way, or something beyond what we can describe. So the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of 10,000 things. Ever desireless, one can see the mystery. Ever desiring, one can see the manifestations. These two spring from the same source, but differ in name. This appears as darkness, darkness within darkness, the gate to all mystery. So when I first read that, I thought, what? What are you talking about? But, if you not so much study it, but it's like, look, the minute you name it, it's not what it is. So what is it? Actually, it's something beyond what we can even conceive. But that's what gives life to everything. And that's very comforting, that it's something beyond man-made words. The minute you call something a rose, it's a pity to call it a rose. It's more amazing than a rose, this thing. It's like something amazing. The minute you call it a rose, a certain kind of rose, you limit it, So, the Tao, this mystery is something magical. And I think Qigong is just one way of reminding ourselves that when we let go of the ego and we stay connected and still to this unconscious or unknown, as Joe Dispenza calls it, mystery, miracles can happen, amazing things happen, and I think from a Qigong point of view, the mind, you get a lot of, you can get inspiration, solutions, creative ideas, because the mind is just an incredible creative outlet, but most of the time it's crammed with rubbish, So in Buddhism and Qigong and Taoism, it's like empty the mind, then everything can come in, everything that we need or inspires us.
That's wonderful. And yeah, what also stuck with me when we had a chat a couple of days ago, you showed me your T-shirt with calligraphy, a painting or drawing, and you also referred to that your master, your teacher, I don't know, like he was using calligraphy to describe the energetical state of a patient or a student, and then like changing the energy, change the calligraphy, or like how did that work, and how was the relationship between the two? Like,
wow, it's quite hard to get your head around. I think on this podcast, it's going to be hard for people to, but I'll explain as best I can. We are, as I mentioned, energy beings, and the heavy element of the energy tends to be in the earth. We know that the earth is heavy, heaven is light. As humans, our energy tends to be a bit mixed up. In other words, we're thinking a lot, we're holding stuff into the body. So the heavy energy tends to be in the body. The mind is a bit overloaded. The feet, not truly grounded into the earth. So we're kind of a bit disconnected. In that state, my teacher has a skill where he does, Chinese calligraphy painting. So he just does beautiful characters. But if he tunes into a person's energy, he can do a calligraphy that's reflective of their energy. And in the casual state, most of us, the energy is it's a bit messy and a bit leaking. It's a bit here, a bit there, a bit, that's normal. That's our normal state. Nothing unusual about it. But if somebody's very ill, often their energy state can be very dispersed from the body. Just for example, if somebody is in a coma, excuse me, we talked about the qi is the subtle energy in the body. There's another word called the shen. The shen is the body light or the body spirit. So Qigong is also a practice that helps the body light or spirit to be fully in the body. And when we are ill, the body light or spirit can be slightly off the body. And you see it in children until the age of, I'm not sure exactly, but say maybe 7 to 9 or 10. Children's shen is slightly out of the, aren't they? They're always excitable. They're always like this. It settles after the age of, I don't know exactly, but say 7 to 9, settle, then they're grounded children, but when they're young, they're completely ungrounded. They're just connected to all the possibilities. So that's a shen, a good description, and I'm sure we know people like that, where their minds are all over the place. Their energy and spirit is all over the place. It's not necessarily a good state as an adult. But when people, for example, are in a coma, the shen is gone from the body. Body's here, the spirit is out there. Often they come out of the coma, it's like the shen, the spirit coming back into the body. Then they're out of the coma. And we know cases like that. But often if it's too far gone, and that's what happens when we die, that the spirit leaves the body, then the body is dead, So when somebody's very ill, often the shen or the light body is leaking off the body. And so when he's doing the calligraphy, if somebody's very ill, it can be really a messy calligraphy.
So he visually sees the energetical state of...
He says it. He sees it very clearly and puts it on paper. And then you look at it and it's just a mess, but a clear mess. He can describe it fully. He can say the hips, you see the energy leaking from the hips, the heart area, the emotions, can you see it? And you can see it in the brush strokes. It's like a messy thing. Then he continues with the calligraphy and the healing comes through doing another calligraphy where the energy is a bit more organized. It can't happen immediately because it takes time to get the energy back. Then he might do another calligraphy and, by the end.
And through the calligraphy, he's changing, through painting a different calligraphy, he's changing the energetical state of that student.
Exactly. And they don't necessarily need to know. They still get the effect. So they could be lying down asleep. He can still be doing it. So, and I was there once on a retreat, and he was tuning into somebody who had Lyme's disease. Do you know Lyme's disease? Yeah, when you get and it had gone to his brain, and he couldn't talk anymore. So for 3 years, he'd lost his sense of speech.
Wow. Yeah.
So he tuned into him. And did this for quite a long time, maybe an hour it took, the calligraphies. And then he said to this person, say something, I want you to talk. And he said something, he talked, first time in 3 years. Say something else. It was a bit difficult, but he talked. It was miraculous.
Incredible, yeah.
And next day, we all got together. There were like 40 of us in this retreat. And he said to this person, say something, and the person couldn't talk. And he said, that's because the mind doesn't believe it. The healing, it's what I said earlier. Sometimes we think the tumor's gone. Where is it? Hang on, it can't just go. So often it's the fear or the doubt that blocks the healing. No matter how good a healer he is or other people, we have our own path in life, and no matter what someone else does. So, but anyway, long story short, often if somebody's relatively healthy, the calligraphy can be quite quick-ish. And then when it ends up, the energy well contained, it's a very beautiful, neat calligraphy. Probably a dot is the energy center in the bottom. The earth is a bit heavy element and the head quite clear. So generally as energy beings, upper part is quite light, empty, the mind, body insubstantial, and legs, lower part has a kind of energy center. So that's how we're grounded, centered. But as I said, we tend to be a bit mixed up. So Qigong is kind of a reorganizing the energy system. And there are many different ways. So that calligraphy is just unbelievable. If I hadn't seen it for many weeks, I've been on retreats and seen it. It's
I mean, it sounds super crazy.
Yeah, it is.
But then also, from what I understand, that as long as you don't change your beliefs, you're kind of remanifesting like the same situation in a sense. Like even though
to an extent. Just for example, if somebody's really ill in hospital, and my teacher tunes in and does a calligraphy at home without even being there. I've seen him, he gives it to somebody in an envelope, they put it under the pillow, it helps the healing greatly. The person doesn't have to change the beliefs, they don't even know what's on the calligraphy, but it's like a herbal medicine. It's a calligraphy that has an energy. We are energy beings, to go back to that.
So is it like, that's like really what I'm curious, is it changing the underlying cause of the disease, or is it more like fixing it, but the cause, whatever belief or like compensating strategy or whatever there is, like might still be there, and then just a matter of time might reemerge? Or is that completely
hard to say? Very hard to say. I would say it changes us on a kind of cellular level. So if it's, say, an illness, the illness can go quickly. It gets something into action. Now, if it's the grace of God coming and doing it, great. If it's the transmission from the calligraphy through the master, through his masters, through their masters from 500 years ago, it's okay. Whatever it is, it's something I feel on a cellular level. I think, the human body, I mean, even Deepak Chopra talks about this. He said it's the most amazing pharmacy in the world that you could ever imagine. It has the capacity to heal anything. The body does, but it needs the help of the mind. It needs to be in tune, It has a capacity, but it's limited by often the mind. The mind, either the fear, the blocks, the belief systems you mentioned, but some things can override it. Not many things, I believe, can override all those things, but the Qi has its own intelligence. So often it's not even my teacher, it's what came down, transmitted, and is being transmitted through. So it's a kind of mysterious, I like to not put my finger on it too much, but just call it a mysterious energy that's always there and available. And I'd like to mention something quite interesting. One Qigong master, he's a martial arts master, and he studied the immune system for like 15 years. He's in his 70s now, and he taught a lot of martial artists in Hollywood how to fight. He's a very well-known guy in France. And he said, when we're born, our DNA is the same in every cell, because it multiplies, doesn't it? DNA, multiplies 2, 4, 8, So when we're born, the DNA is the same. Science will agree with that. But he said within a minute of birth, he said, and science can't explain this, our white blood cells, the immune system, DNA, changes within a minute of birth. How? Like who? I mean, it's impossible. How can it change within a minute of birth? But it does. And if we didn't have that change, then we would have no immune system. And that's what keeps us alive. So he calls that, in French, beautifully put, le souffle de Dieu, God's breath. And that's a mystery. You can't explain it. Science can't explain it, never will. I mean, you know, it's never going to be explained. And it's quite nice it's not explained. Why, you know, big deal if we can explain it. But the beauty is that when we do practice like Qigong, often it's like being aware of even the immune system working for us very hard. It does work very hard, but often we ignore the body. We're not in tune with the immune, with this, with that. So it's like, it's a beautiful reminder. And I often do that if I'm doing meditation. I'm just grateful to my immune system for keeping me alive. You know, it's magic. It's amazing, really, you know. So that's an amazing fact that I'd love, you can do research on it.
I will check it out.
He's a big fan of God's breath, and so am I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, the more you know, the less you know, or the more you know, the more you realize how little you actually know. it's
actually, and look, we can maybe end on that before we do the meditation, because I think one of the things with Qigong is getting myself out of the way is a big part of the practice. When I get myself out, the Qi just comes in. You know, it's like, whoa, what's going on? Ego out of the way, get myself out of the way. The energy guides, the energy nourishes, the energy inspires, the energy heals. But it's not easy, especially with a body that's physical and heavy, to get out of the way, because it's like, you know, how? But at some point, often the body can feel like we did the empty ball. If you can really become the empty ball, there's nothing to heal. There's nothing to get rid of. How can a tumor even be in an empty ball? It can't. So that's the power of the Qi that can transform if we can get into that state and stay in it. Now that's the skill of a I'd say a good teacher, to transmit that. And often I might show it to somebody, they get it 10 times more than I do. Nothing wrong with that. It's not that I have more or less. I could just tune in, bring it in, or, you know, awaken people to it. Then it's their practice, you know. And I've had people have, you know, amazing results where we weren't even thinking about their problem. I didn't even know they had it, and it disappeared, you know, in an hour. So but do you think maybe we could have a short meditation, because we've been on for a while, and maybe people would like to?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think perfect keyword. Yeah, I'm very curious.
Now it's very short and easy, and I'm aware that, and I haven't listened to it yet, that you did a whole hour or an hour and a half on breathing techniques. So I don't want to.
No, it's like, just go, like,
do anything, you know. But one of the things often with things like the breath is that we tend to either hold it, or we worry about how we breathe. And there are many different techniques, even in Qigong. One of the main techniques is breathing out from the mouth, is like breathing all the stuffy air or illness out. In through the nose is like fresh air in and stuffy air out. But, you know, something even easier, and that connects us to this universal energy as well, is imagining that every cell of the body is breathing. So we don't need to think about the breath. We don't need to think about the lungs, about anything, but every cell is breathing. And even more than that, every cell is being breathed, or we are being breathed. And actually we're enabled to live by this universal energy. When the Qi is gone, then the breath is gone, everything is gone. So it's just going to be a very simple one to just sense this idea. Every cell is being breathed by the universe. So I was just going to say, if we just close the hands, close the fingers, that contains the energy a bit, just put them on the knees. The feet can be flat on the ground. We can sit a bit more towards the front of the chair, only so that the spine is straight, because if the spine is a bit collapsed, energy doesn't flow so easily. So just an easy position, just sitting towards the front, fingers closed, eyes gently closed. And then just switch on to this idea. And often in Qigong we say this, you just kind of give a hint, don't have to think too much, too hard, just give a hint. Every cell breathing, every hair on the head breathing, all the way down to the feet, and just noticing the breath settling in the whole body. It's like the body becomes stiller, and in the stillness a lot of things can go to the right place, they can transform. And beyond every cell breathing is every cell or the body being breathed. It's like the universe is breathing us. Just completely let go of any idea we need to control anything. Just get a sense of being breathed, every cell exchanging light or air with the universe. Smile on the face, we just take it easy, a couple more minutes. Feet quite heavy into the earth, that's the grounding part. Head floated up slightly, the spine extending towards the heaven. The body freed up a bit, just feel quite empty, loose, the body. Allowing the breathing to happen for us. So this helps to settle also the emotions, the internal organs, the whole energy internally settling down, the body enabled by this universal energy. Can do some rubbing on the knees, just more aware of the physical body, squeezing the knees, because if we do this, often we can go on for quite a while, but it feels very comfortable. You can end up staying for a while, which is not a bad thing. But I think on the call, it's been quite a long call, so I think we can just do some rubbing and more aware of the physical body, rub the hands together, move the fingers, become clearer. So this is a very simple one that, if we feel a bit emotional, just close the eyes gently, go into this state of being breathed, and should take us quite quickly into a deeper state. I don't know if you've noticed anything yourself.
That was very peaceful.
Good. That's good enough.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Good enough. Yeah.
No, and I wanted to ask you: is there something or any advice you would like to give to someone listening who wants to become more self-aware or like more free, like more empowerment? Is there one single thing you would recommend? Or
I wrote a few things down here. Actually, I haven't looked at my notes at all, but I'm noticing one of my favorite quotes is Ram Dass. Do you know Ram Dass? American. One of my favorite quotes is, "We are all just walking each other home." You know, just be kind to ourselves, you know, love ourselves, be kind to other people, just keep things as simple as possible, do our own practice. And one of the things I'd written here is forgive now. You know, sometimes people say, I'll forgive them one day, you know, forgive people, you know, right now, anyone that we're holding some resentment, and to do it for ourselves, for them, but more for ourselves, to release, because when we don't forgive, we have a lot of, you know, we hold on to things. And I think I realized through the practice, it's just not holding on to anything, just allow things at the moment, this whole situation, we need to really keep the mind and body as clear as possible. So forgive yourself, firstly, forgive others immediately, and, you know, connect with your own peace of mind, keep your, you know, energy connected, and stay positive, kind to yourself and others, and walk each other home in a nice way.
I mean, that's the perfect, the perfect ending, I guess. Yeah. Sounds amazing. Thank you very much, Alessandro, for your time, for your wisdom, sharing your experience. It was really amazing. Just listening to you and learning from you. And thank you very much. Yeah.
It was great. Look, I noticed we're both wearing red without planning it.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
Simon.
Yeah.
And I think if anyone wants to get in touch, you'll put the links below anyway. But
Yes, exactly. So I will share all the
yeah,
information to get in touch with you. And if there's
yeah,
something you wanna share, like a project or like anything, like
yeah.
what you want to share with that audience,
There
that will
will
be.
be. Yeah, there will be. And on the website, there's information on one-to-one sessions online and group sessions. But at the moment, I think with the COVID, there'll be quite a few sort of free Qigong sessions on Instagram and things, because I think it's time just to, you know, to get it out there, help people, you know, with their immunity, stay positive, stay hopeful. And, you know, we're all going to come through this, but we all need to kind of, you know, stay in control of our own health and emotions and energy. So I really appreciate you inviting me on here.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, very much. Thank you very much. I will add all the resources, contact information, etc., to the show notes, so that people can check you out, find you, and learn Qigong.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thanks, Simon. Thank you.